is Sips of Inspiration, and I'm Anne Butera. Today I have Ruby Josephine with me. Ruby lives in Morocco, which again, that's just amazing to me that we can connect this way over the internet. And so I'll just let Ruby take it away and tell us about herself.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Anne. I'm really excited to be here and be talking to you again.
Wonderful.
Thanks. So yeah, I'm a dance artist and choreographer, and I've lived in Morocco for over 6 years now. But I'm originally from Minneapolis, Minnesota, so fellow Midwesterner, just like you. So I've been choreographing and teaching dance and performing dance in Morocco and basically for my whole life, in different places all over the world. And I do quite a few things. I guess along with choreography, I'm also a podcaster. I also write a newsletter, and so I'm always kind of dipping my hands in a lot of different creative things.
That's wonderful. I know a lot of us are multi-creative people, and
exactly.
sometimes that gets a bad rap because you're told that you have to focus and no one will be able to follow along if you're doing all these different things. I tend to disagree because I think creativity feeds creativity.
I think so too. And I will say that I think most of the things I do now, at least, are more through the lens of dance and movement. I think I used to be a little bit more all over the place, but now it's a little bit more focused, even if it appears to be a lot of different things.
Great. So where do you find inspiration, and do you ever get blocked? And if you do, how do you get your inspiration flowing and your creativity flowing again?
I get inspiration from so many different sources. I think as a dancer, it's a lot of music and it's a lot of seeing other people's performances. Unfortunately, it's not something I get to do a lot here in Morocco, so that does create some block in terms of just not always having the ability to reach out to other artists and connect with them directly. I mean, online is an amazing way to do that, but I don't have the community around me all the time. And I think communities can be very inspiring and a way to feed inspiration. But lately I've been finding a lot of inspiration in conversations like these, which is why I started my podcast, but why I also just love to have conversations with fellow friends and artists about what's inspiring them, and then picking up on kind of the threads of connection between what inspires us all. I think that's something that I've been just thinking about a lot lately. And then in terms of getting blocked, I think the biggest challenge that I come up with here is often, and just in general, not just in Morocco, but is always trying to balance the more teaching side of my work with the more creation side of my work. Because as a dance teacher, I'm always having to come up with choreography and exercises for the students, which is actually a lot of creative output already. But then sometimes that takes away too much energy from my personal creative work. So I feel like I'm in this constant balancing act between the two. And it just takes a lot of trying to tap into my own personal intuition of how does this feel today? How does this feel this month? Is there something I need to add or subtract? And I think I've had to accept that it's never going to be stagnant. It's always going to be changing every single period of my life. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, it keeps things interesting too, then.
Yes, absolutely. I'm definitely not the kind of person that can just stick with one kind of job for a long time. I seem to have like a year minimum or a maximum, and then I need to like keep things rolling and change it up.
That's good.
Yeah.
So would you say, were there other challenges other than that balance between teaching and your own creativity, or is that the biggest one in general that you face?
Mm-hmm. That's definitely one that I probably comes up the most often for me and comes up periodically, kind of in phases of needing to check in with it. In terms of creating work, let me think. I mean, there's always just daily challenges, I think, with being an artist. I mean, this is probably something that has come up a lot with other conversations with artists, but I definitely have struggled in the past more with imposter syndrome. And I mean, it still exists. I don't think that's something that ever goes away for an artist, but there's often this sense of, because I'm an artist working by myself, I don't always get the kind of external validation from other dancers to work with and other choreographers who are telling you, good job, you're doing great. It's all kind of self-discipline and me in the studio just working with myself. And that can definitely create a lot of doubt. And, we crave that external validation for better or for worse. And I think it's definitely been a process to get to a place where I can just feel comfortable enough in myself and my work to really confidently call myself a dancer and, have no shame or fear about that, I think, in the dance world.
How do you work to battle those doubts and the fears?
A lot of writing about it. I write out a lot. I try to journal every day if I can. It's not completely daily, but I think just letting it out for me is a really key thing for any emotion that I'm feeling, but that especially. I have a lot of conversations about it with really close people in my life, and I think it's helpful that a lot of those people maybe are not necessarily artists in the same field as me. So, when I was younger, I'd always talk to my parents about my fears and doubts, and they're always really good listeners. And they're both artists, but neither of them are dancers. And I'll talk with my husband, I'll talk with some of my friends who are also maybe not in the art world. And I think that kind of helps put it all in perspective a little bit more. Just when you're talking to people who are maybe not so insulated in that art world, it can kind of pull you out of that, I don't know, that tunnel vision that we get sometimes.
Right, and especially if you're working on your own by yourself, you're in your head so much of the time.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so it's good to have those people to pull you out. So I think talking it out and writing it out are really just the key things for me. Somehow just like letting out the frustration in order to work through it and maybe recognize it, that it's kind of ridiculous. Not,
right.
I mean, it's a valid emotion, but
once you get it out, you can let it go and be free from it.
Exactly. That's it. Yeah.
Right.
I'm a big believer in that.
So then the last question I have, which I've been asking everyone, is what is the best piece of creative advice that you've ever gotten? Or if there's no advice that's really resonated with you, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned on your creative journey?
I think I have two. And I feel like I might repeat this story a lot. I've probably said this a couple times in like different places. But I always have this memory of my choreography teacher in university. She was teaching us just about basic kind of choreographic skills. And she told us that choreography, it's very simple. Basically, you have a problem in front of you. You put yourself into a problem or into a challenge, and you figure out as many different possibilities of getting out of it, and then just choose whichever one you want. And it sounds like very simple advice, but I found that so helpful in terms of creating choreography, and then also just in terms of solving any sort of creative problems. Just embracing the challenge and almost put yourself in that challenge, knowing that all of the possibilities are going to be endless, and you're going to come up with something new and original depending on what you choose. So I think that's kind of the piece of advice that I've kept in mind a lot. And then what was the second? What was the other? Or because I kind of had an answer to that too.
If there's no advice that resonates with you, or if you just want to share, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned?
Well, that one, actually, I just thought of this because I just shared an episode today with a choreographer that I worked with named Natalia Fernandez, and she's a Brazilian choreographer who's amazing. And we worked together in 2015, so back when I was really young and kind of in the beginning of my choreography career and dance career. And when we were working together, she was directing a solo that I was choreographing. And she kept saying to me, we need to focus on the work behind the work, like, I don't care what the work is going to look like in the end. We need to focus on the work behind that. And I think that's a common phrase. I think I've heard that in other places since then. But it was the first time I had heard it then, this phrase of the work behind the work. And that has really been like kind of the seed that sprouted all of my creative work from there. And it's also how I look at other artwork now. How I judge my own artwork is not by what it looks like on the surface, but what is the work behind it, and can you see the work behind it? And for me personally, when I see a piece of art or when I'm talking to another artist, if I can't get a sense of that real integrity of the work behind it, it falls a little bit flat for me. And I don't want my own personal work to fall flat. So that's become kind of the I don't know, just my motto, I guess, my creative motto in terms of creating and looking at art.
Well, it's so interesting because so often now we just see the finished product, especially on social
Mm-hmm.
media. We see
Yes,
it done and we know nothing about the context of how it came about. And sometimes that's obvious
exactly.
and sometimes it's not. And I think we lose a lot when the story behind it is not there.
Right, exactly. And even some people do share, there's a lot of these kind of like hashtag process things on Instagram, but even that, it can be such curated process that you're not really seeing the real research work or what the person is reflecting on and thinking about. And I think just the more layers something has, the more interesting and the more ability we will have to connect with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's
Yeah.
wonderful. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much, Ruby. It's
Thank
been wonderful
you.
talking to you.
Yeah, it's been wonderful to talk to you too. I'm here with my tea. So
Yeah, I've got my coffee. It's cold, which is what it most of the time that my coffee is cold and or forgotten in the microwave.
yep, I do similar things. I just switched out my cold coffee for tea. So
I'm going to be doing that in a minute. Well, it was great talking to you.
perfect.
Thanks so much,
Great
Ruby.
talking to you too. Thank you.